The Valoran flagship Ascendant Fury drifted in the silent darkness of space. The once proud warship leaned slightly to the left, its hull torn open in several places. Streams of atmosphere escaped into space like ghostly clouds. Inside the bridge, the lights glowed a dull red. Emergency power. Commander Keth Varys stood before the cracked viewport, staring at the graveyard of ships floating around them. 43 ships remained. Just hours ago there had been 112. Damage report, she said quietly. Lieutenant Sorvex glanced at the tactical display. 43 vessels operational in some capacity. Only 9 remain combat capable above 30%. Silence filled the bridge. Everyone understood what that meant. They were already dead. The Dominion fleet. Keth asked. They will arrive in approximately 6 hours. 6 hours. That was all the time the fleet had left. A hologram flickered to life in the center of the bridge. Admiral Vethan appeared. His old face looked like carved stone. I have reviewed the situation, he said calmly. Our fleet is beyond repair. The words struck the room like a weapon. We will prepare for a final stand. Our sacrifice will buy time for the coalition. Keth felt her second heart tighten. A warrior's death. That was honorable. But something inside her rebelled against the idea. There had to be another way. Then a chime interrupted the silence. Commander, Sorvex said. We are receiving a transmission. From whom? He hesitated. The human observer vessel. Keth blinked. The humans. She had almost forgotten they were here. The small species had joined the coalition only recently. Their contribution to the war had been minimal. One small frigate. The Resolute. Mostly engineers and observers. They survived the ambush, she asked. Yes. They request permission to dock. Admiral Vethan sighed. Let them come. Perhaps they wish to witness how warriors die. The human arrives. Minutes later the Resolute attached itself to the Ascendant Fury. The airlock opened. A human stepped through. He was older than Keth expected. Grey hair. Tired eyes. He wore a simple uniform with a small patch. Captain Deacon Grey. He looked around the massive alien docking bay without fear. Commander Keth Varys, he said. His voice sounded rough but steady. I need to see your fleet damage reports. Keth frowned. Captain, our fleet is beyond repair. Grey shook his head slowly. I didn't ask what you lack. He stepped closer. I asked what you have. Keth studied him carefully. This fleet has 43 broken ships. Grey gave a thin smile. No, he said. You have 34 ships full of spare parts. The room went quiet. Sub-Commander Tar stepped forward angrily. You suggest we strip our wounded vessels. Desecrate them. Grey didn't move. I suggest you survive. The human way. Grey walked toward the tactical display. He began moving icons across the hologram. Your 9 combat-ready ships are damaged. But the others still have working components. He highlighted several ships. This cruiser still has shield generators. That destroyer has intact pulse cannons. This frigate has a functioning reactor. The display changed. Broken ships dissolved into parts. Weapons. Engines. Shield arrays. Power systems. Grey crossed his arms. You're looking at 43 broken ships. I'm looking at 9 ships waiting to be rebuilt. Admiral Vethan appeared again. You propose cannibalizing our fleet. I propose giving you a fighting chance. The Admiral studied him carefully. Our engineering doctrine requires precise construction. Grey nodded. I read your specs. Beautiful engineering. Then he leaned forward. And that's why you're about to die. Several Valoran officers reached for their weapons. Keth raised her hand. Continue. Grey tapped his datapad. Human ships are built differently. We expect things to break. So we design them to be repaired. He displayed a human shield system. Your shield generator requires 72 connections. Ours requires 12. Your design is perfect. Ours still works when half of it explodes. The room fell silent again. You have 6 hours, Gray continued. In 6 hours my engineers can rebuild your fleet. Not perfectly, but enough to fight. Tar shook his head. It is impossible. Gray turned toward him. Then you can die with dignity. Or pick up a welding torch and save your lives. The decision. Admiral Vethan turned to Keth. You command the fleet. The decision is yours. Keth looked around the room. Her warriors. Her ships. Her dying fleet. Then she looked back at the human. His eyes held no arrogance. Only determination. Finally she spoke. Signal all ships. The bridge officers froze. Every available crew member will assist with repairs. Captain Gray will coordinate. Shock spread across the bridge. Gray simply nodded. Good, he said. Then we'd better get started. Chaos and fire. 4 hours later the Ascendant Fury looked like a construction yard. Warriors welded metal. Engineers crawled through conduits. Ships were being torn apart and rebuilt at the same time. Valoran soldiers who had never touched repair tools now worked beside human engineers. Sparks filled the docking bays. Metal screamed. Systems hummed back to life. Keth watched from an observation platform. This would never pass inspection, Tar muttered. Gray walked past them, covered in grease. It doesn't need to pass inspection, he said. It needs to work. The repairs continued without rest. But then a message arrived. Commander, Sorvex said. The Dominion fleet has accelerated. Arrival in 90 minutes. Keth felt dread crawl through her chest. She opened a channel. Captain Gray, we've lost time. Gray's reply came immediately. Then we work faster. A new plan. Even with the repairs, they could only restore 7 ships. 7 against 38. Gray studied the tactical display. Then his eyes stopped on one symbol. The interdiction generator, he said. That's what's trapping your fleet. Yes, Keth replied. It blocks hyperspace escape. Gray nodded slowly. What if we destroy it? Keth stared at him. It is heavily defended. Gray pointed at the Resolute. My ship is small enough to slip through. Keth understood instantly. You're suggesting a suicide mission. Gray shrugged slightly. 1 ship for a fleet. My crew already volunteered. Keth stood silent for a long moment. Then she shook her head. No. Gray blinked. The Resolute will not attack alone. She turned to Tar. How damaged is the destroyer Ketha's Vengeance? Severely. Hull integrity 30%. Good, she said. It will join the strike. Tar stared in disbelief. You would risk another ship. Keth looked back at Gray. We fight together. Then she addressed the entire bay. I need volunteers for a high-risk mission. Survival is unlikely. Every Valoran warrior stepped forward. Gray looked at them with quiet respect. Well, he said softly. Looks like we might actually pull this off. 70 minutes later, the Dominion fleet arrived. 38 warships appeared from hyperspace in perfect formation. At the center floated their most important vessel. The interdiction ship Void's Grasp. Its massive generator projected the field trapping the Valoran fleet. On the bridge of the Ascendant Fury, Commander Keth Veris stood ready. Status. 7 combat-capable ships, Sorvex reported. Strike team ready. Keth nodded. The plan was simple. 7 damaged ships would engage the Dominion fleet. During the chaos, the Resolute and Ketha's Vengeance would slip through and destroy the generator. Simple. But nearly impossible. Dominion transmission incoming, Sorvex said. They demand surrender. Keth smiled coldly. Ignore it. She opened a fleet-wide channel. Warriors of the Valoran fleet. The enemy believes we are already dead. Let us correct that mistake. All ships, attack. The impossible fleet. 7 damaged ships surged forward. The Dominion fleet reacted instantly. Energy beams crossed the darkness of space. Shields flared. Weapons thundered. The Ascendant Fury shook violently as enemy fire struck her hull. "Port shields holding!" Sorvex shouted. Keth felt surprise. Those shields should have failed already. But the human repairs held. Across the battlefield, the rebuilt ships fought wildly. The cruiser Vitha's Hope fired weapons taken from 3 different ships. The destroyer Saren's Light flew with engines mounted sideways, making unpredictable movements. Dominion targeting systems struggled to adapt. "They can't predict our maneuvers," Sorvex said. Keth almost laughed. Of course they couldn't. These ships weren't supposed to exist. The strike team. Hidden behind drifting wreckage, 2 ships moved quietly. The human frigate Resolute. And the damaged destroyer Ketha's Vengeance. Lieutenant Marcus Chen commanded the Resolute. "Distance to target?" he asked. 4 minutes. Dominion interceptors began turning toward them. Chen frowned. "They spotted us." He opened a channel. "Vengeance, stay behind us. We'll draw their fire." The small frigate accelerated. Enemy weapons opened fire. Shields began collapsing. Hull alarms screamed. 30 seconds to weapons range. Chen shouted. The destroyer broke formation and opened fire on the escorts. 3 salvaged cannons roared. But the Resolute was dying. Shields gone. Multiple hull breaches. Chen looked at the generator ahead. Just a little closer. He made a decision. "All hands brace." He turned the ship directly toward the interdiction vessel. Then he overloaded the fusion core. The sacrifice. The explosion of the Resolute was small compared to warship weapons. But it happened at exactly the right moment. The blast scattered debris across the generator's shields. The shield grid flickered. And for 1 second, it opened. Behind the explosion, Ketha's Vengeance fired. 3 pulse cannons. The first missed. The second struck armor. The third hit the generator coupling. The massive ship Void's grasp screamed. Energy surged wildly. The generator tore itself apart. Interdiction field collapsing. Sorvex shouted. Hyperspace lanes reopened. But Ketha's Vengeance did not escape. Dominion interceptors destroyed it seconds later. "Escape. All ships retreat." Keth ordered. The surviving Valoran ships began jumping to hyperspace. One by one they vanished from the battlefield. The Ascendant Fury stayed behind the longest, covering the retreat. Finally Keth gave the final order. "Jump." Stars stretched into brilliant lines. Silence returned. 6 ships escaped. Hundreds of survivors. Not victory, but survival. Aftermath. Hours later, the fleet drifted safely in coalition space. On the bridge, Captain Deacon Gray sat heavily against a wall. His face looked exhausted. 5 of his 15 engineers had survived. Keth approached him quietly. "Captain Gray," she said, "you saved this fleet." Gray shook his head. "My crew did. They died doing their jobs." His voice cracked slightly. "We fix things. Sometimes we break ourselves doing it." Keth sat beside him. A gesture no Valoran commander would normally make. "When I report this battle," she said slowly, "I will recommend human engineers be assigned to every ship in our fleet." Gray smiled faintly. "We had a saying on Earth." "What is it?" she asked. He looked out the viewport. "There's no such thing as beyond repair. Just, not repaired yet." The legacy. 6 battered ships carried 400 survivors back toward safety. Behind them, the Dominion fleet searched empty space in frustration. Their perfect trap had been broken. Not by superior weapons. Not by numbers. But by one strange idea from a species they had underestimated. A species that believed broken things could always be fixed. Even fleets. Even wars. Even hope. And somewhere deep inside Valoran military doctrine, a new rule would soon appear. Always bring a human engineer.